We begin today the Gemara on the top of Daf Samach Gimel, 3 lines from the top of the page. Before the Gemara begins, the Gemara gives a siman for the different things it's going to discuss. Siman, Isha, Vekarka, Ezer, Zeus, Shtei, Habrachis, Tagori, and Pachasi. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Lazar said, Kol Adam she'ein lo Isha, a person that doesn't have a wife, ein Adam. He's not a complete person, not a complete man. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Zachar u'nekeva b'ram. The Eibusha created the male and the female to be one entity. And then, Vayikra Shmam Adam. And he refers to them with the name Adam. So if it's not a Zachar and Nekeva together, they're not Adam. Amar Rabbi Lazar also said, Kol Adam she'ein lo karka. A person that doesn't have a piece of land that he lives on. Ein Adam. Is not a full Adam. Shenemar Shemayim Lashem. V'ha'aretz nasan levnei Adam. A land the Eibusha gives to people. So if a person has a piece of land, then he's an Adam. In Chassidus, this is usually quoted as kol mi she'ein lo bayis. A person that's homeless is not living like a human being. It's the same concept. Right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to own the piece of land or own your house, but the fact that a person has a piece of land or a roof over his head where he lives. Rabbi Lazar said, what's the meaning of the pasuk where it says, Es Eloi Ezer Kenegdei? The Eibusha says, I will make for you a help that's opposite you or against you. So what does this mean? It seems to be two opposites. Is a wife a help or is a wife against you? Zacha, person merits Eizrasai, then his wife helps him. Loi Zacha, if he does not merit Kenegdei, then she opposes him, she's against him. Vikadamri, others say that Rabbi Lazar said this in a little bit of a different version. Rabbi Lazar Rami, he asked a contradiction. He says, Ksiv kenagdoi. If you read the pasuk, so you could pronounce it differently. You could pronounce it with a patach, kenagdoi, which would mean that she hits him. The karinon, but it's pronounced, it's read. If you add an akudis, it's read kenegdoi. So what does this mean? Zocha, if he merits, then kenegdoi. So then she's right opposite him, there to help him. Loi zocha, but if he does not merit, minagdosai. So then she hits him. Ashkechei Rabbi Yosi le'Eliyahu. Rabbi Yosi encountered Eliyahu. Amalei, and he said to Eliyahu, Ksiv es Eliezer. It says that a wife is a help. Bameh isha is rasel adam. So he asks Eliyahu, how is a wife helping a man? Interesting, he has to ask Eliyahu such a kind of a question. Amalei, so he answers him with a very simple answer. Adam mevichitin, a person works in the field, and he brings in the wheat from into his house. Chitin kaisis. He can eat the wheat, the kernels of the wheat, just as is. Pishta, a person brings flax in from the field. Pishton leivish, he can wear the flax just as is. So he has to have his wife to do all the work, to grind it and to prepare it, to bake bread, and also to prepare and sew clothing for him. So lenimtzis meira einav, so doesn't it come out that his wife brings light to his eyes, umamidatsa raglov, and she stands him up on his feet. So you see how a wife supports a husband. There has to be some deeper secrets over here in this conversation that he's asking Eliyahu. Rabbi Lazar said, what does it mean in the pasuk when it says by Adam Erishin, Zoi Sapam, after the Eibusha created Chava, so he says, now he was already happy. Etzem Matsamai, Basam Ipsari, it's a bone from my body and it's a flesh from my body. What does this mean? Melamed Shaba Adam al Kol Behema V'chaya, Adam went and had relations with every animal and wild beast, and he wasn't happy, he didn't calm down. Until he had relations with Chava, then he said, this is my partner. Some say this doesn't mean literally, that he was Baal Kol Behema V'chaya, but it means that he understood that that his partner is only Chava. Rabbi Lazar said, what is the meaning of the pasuk? And it says, the Eibusha tells Avraham Avinu, V'nivruchu b'cha kol mishpacha yisa adama. All nations, all the families in the world will bless themselves with you. So there's another pshat here in the word, v'nivrechu. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'Avram, the Eibusha tells Avram Avinu as follows, Shtei breichais toivos, I have 2 little shoots of trees. So yeshli lahavrich bach, I can graft them into your family. Who are they? Rus HaMayaviyah, v'Nama HaMaynis. Rus and Nama, that both were Megayer, so these are these 2 shoots that were grafted into the tree of the Yidden. Then when it says in the pasuk, Kol mishpacha yisa adama, what does this mean? That all the families of the earth will bless themselves with you. Afila mishpachais hadares ba'adama, all the families of the Goyim that live in the land. Eimiz barchais, whatever blessing they get, they're only getting it ela b'shvil Yisrael, because of the sake of Yidden. It's a similar pasuk that it says afterwards over there, also by Avraham Avinu, Kol Goyei Yaretz. It says over there, V'nivruchu boi Kol Goyei Yaretz. So what does it mean here? Afilis finos habois migalia la Aspamia. Even a boat that's traveling from Gallia to Aspamia. So some say Gallia is today's France and Aspamia is Spain or maybe Italy. So the boats that are traveling in that area in the world, einon mizbarchos, whatever blessing they get, they're not getting it ela b'shvil Yisrael, only for the sake of Yidden. Rabbi Lazar also said, Asidim kol balei umaniyos sheyamdu ala karka. In the future, after Mashiach comes, all the craftsmen will drop their work, and instead they will just work in the field, farmers. Shanema, the pasuk says, V'yardu mani yisayim kol tovsei mashayt. All those that are on the boats and they're holding on to their oars, they will drop it. Malachim kol chayvlei hayam. All the captains on the sea, and they will drop all of that, and they will come ala aretz yamdu. They'll stand on the earth. They'll be farmers working the field. Rabbi Lazar also said, Ein lecha omnis pchusa min hakarka. There's no work that's lower or that's more simple than just working in the field. Shenema v'yardu, and that pasuk it says v'yardu, that they go down a level. And so why is this a blessing on Lasad Lave? So the Mefarshim say, because the point here is that Lasad Lave, people will be very content and satisfied with what they're doing. They're not going to look to be a craftsman or have some kind of a high position in business. They'll be happy to just do simple work and work in their field. Rabbi Lazar saw a field, the Shadi Bekarva Lapusya. It was plowed in its width, which is not the way you usually plow a field. You have to usually plow it in the length. So when you walk into the field, you can then come and plant it and go straight down the rows. So over here it was planted in the wrong direction in the length, in the width that is. Amalei, so Rabbi Lazar said, as if he's speaking to the field, even if it would be thrown to the length, meaning even if the plowing would be done in its length in the proper way, hafuchi beiska, but to turn over and to go instead into business and not to be a farmer, tav minach, is better than occupying myself with the field there and being a farmer. Rav, all the Beni Shibli, Rav walked between the sheaves in a field. He was standing in the middle of a field. There was beautiful wheat that was growing. Chazina de kanaifen, and he saw that it's blowing in the wind. Amalahu, so again he said, it's like he's speaking to the field, Inaifis is snufi. Even if you're blowing so beautifully in the wind, hafuchi beiske, but instead of being a farmer, turning over and going into business, tav minach, is better than working here in the field. Rava said about the same thing. Meye zuzi beiske, a person that invests 100 zuz, $100 or whatever it is, into business, kol yoim every day, bisr v'chamra. He'll have meat and wine to eat and drink every day. Meye zuzi ba'ara, a person that invests 100 zuz in being a farmer in a field, so then milcha v'chafura. All he'll have to eat is salt and some vegetables. And not only this, he'll have to lie out over there in the field to protect this field. And it also, there's people that he can get into fights and quarrels with people that argue with him on the ownership or on the border of the field. Rav Papa said, Zera v'loy tazbin. You should plant the food that you eat on your own for your family that you need, and do not buy it in the market. And then he adds and explains, even if it's the same, this that you're investing in planting and this that you're going and buying, it's the same money that it costs, but nevertheless, hani mevarchen, what you plant yourself has a certain blessing in it. So the others that you buy out do not have that same kind of a bracha in it. Then he says, Zovin v'loy tezel. If a person sees that he needs money, he's becoming poor, so sell from your possessions and do not wait until you become poor. But what is food? What should you sell? Hanimili bistriki. This is only when it comes to, Rashi says, kliya bayis, furniture, or Rashi says, tapet balaze, mats or carpets, things that you have in your house that you don't really need. So you can sell it so you don't become poor. Avol glima, if a person has his garments that he's wearing, loy misram yelei, this is something you shouldn't sell when you see you're becoming poor, because how do you know if you're going to find other garments to buy to wear? Another good advice the Gemara gives over here, time v'loy tashbitz. If you see there's a hole in the wall, so close up the hole before it becomes too big, and then you're going to have to expand this hole and plaster it. Shvaitz, if this hole already became big, so then plaster it and close it up. And v'loy tivni, so you won't have to demolish the whole wall and rebuild the whole wall. Shekalaisik bebinyan, once you get to that point and you have to rebuild it completely, so anyone that's busy doing construction, mismaskin, you become poor. The cost of construction makes a person poor. Gemara says another good advice, kfeitz zaven ara. You see a field that's for sale, so then jump straight into it and go ahead and buy it. Don't think too much about whether it's a good investment or not. But Mesayin and Nasavitza, when it comes to choosing a wife to get married to, so go about that slowly to make sure that she's a good wife. Another thing is Naches Darge and Nasavitza. And when a person marries a wife, he should go down a level and marry his wife. Rashi says that if a person has a wife that's on a lower level than him, then she'll be able to respect him. If not, she won't. And another good advice, sak darge, go up a level and bechar sheshvina, and choose a friend. When it comes to a friend, so you have someone that you can be connected to him and you could respect him and emulate him, so you go up a level. Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Avina said, "Ein put on his bala ilam ela b'shvil Yisrael." Whatever punishment comes into the world, it's only for the sake of Yidden. Similar to what it said before, all brachas in the world are for the sake of Yidden. Same also with the punishments in the world. Shenemat says in the pasuk, "Hikarti goyim neshamu pinaisam." The Eibishter destroy their corners. The Chrafti chutzaisam. The Eibishter destroy the outskirts of the cities. Oksiv, and over there in the pasuk it says afterwards, Amarti, the Eibishter said, Ach tiri oisi tikchi musa. This is all for the purpose of Yidden to see what the Eibishter does, the destruction the Eibishter brings in the world, so Yidden can take a lesson from this, to see how the Eibishter can punish. Rav have a miftar me Rab Chia. Rav was departing from Rab Chia. Amalei, so he said to him, Rachmana litzlach, the Eibishter should save you, mimidi de kasha mimaisa, from something that's even worse than death. So the Gemara asks, mi ikke midi de kasha mimaisa? Is this something that's worse than death? So Nafak Dok Vashkech, he went out and thought about this, and yes, he found there is something worse than death that you see in a pasuk. And I find that it's more bitter than death, a wife, v'gaimer. So what does this mean? This is a wife that's giving a person pain and suffering, as the Gemara here is going to illustrate a lot of different amirayim and stories that happened. Rav have a komitzare de bisu. So Rav, his wife, gave him pain. What did she do? Ki yamar lo avidili talufchi, when he asked her, prepare me talufchi, which is lentils, of the lei chimtzi. Instead, she made him chimtzi. What's chimtzi? How do they translate it over there? Chamt chimtzi. They don't have the translation. Some say it's peas, or it's
a type of legume, possibly.
Type of legumes, possibly what?
Peas.
Peas. Okay. Chimtzi. If she asked him to make chimtzi of the talufchi, instead she made him lentils. She always did the opposite of what he said. Ki godal Chia berei. So when Chia, Rav's son, was older, so now he would send Chia, his son, to tell his wife what he wants. So apachla, and so he would, whatever Rav said, tell your mother to prepare for me, let's say talufchi, so he would go and tell her the opposite. So like this, he knew that his father will get what he wanted. So what happened? Amalei, so Rav says to his son, look, your mother improved her ways. She gives me what I want. Amalei, so his son Chia said to him, Ano de kafichna. It's me that's telling you the opposite of what you told me to tell her, and that's why and that's why she's giving you what you want. Amalei, Rav said to his son, I see what the wise thing that you did here. So this is what people say, the nafik minach, the child that is born of you, taima malfach, he could teach you wisdom. This is a good idea that you did, that you went and tell her the opposite, so I get what I want. But nevertheless, Rav tells his son, At letavet hachi. You shouldn't do this. Don't tell her the opposite of what I said, because Shanama, the pasuk says, Lamdu l'shaynam dvar sheker. If you get accustomed to saying something which is not true, so it brings you to averis v'gaimer. So therefore, even a lie like this, which is not forbidden, nevertheless, don't get accustomed to saying a lie. Rab Chia, similar story. Rab Chia, Rab Chia's wife gave him pain. What was it? So then, well, actually it doesn't say how she pained him, but then it says about Rab Chia himself, when he would find something in the marketplace that he knew his wife would like, he wrapped it in a garment, he was sort of like gift wrapped it, and he brought it to her. So Rav said to Rab Chia, why are you doing this? Why are you bringing her these things? She gives you pain. She doesn't deserve this. So Rab Chia said, Dayenu, it's enough for us, Shemegadles benenu, that they raise our children, Umatzilos seisanu, and they save us min achet, from Averis, as Rashi says, Hirur Aveda, when a person is married to his wife, he doesn't have Hirhurim of other wives or other women. So the Gemara, a similar story, Makri le Rav Yehuda le Rav Yitzchak. Rav Yehuda taught Rav Yitzchak berei, Rav Yitzchak his son, pasuk where it says that I find a wife to be more bitter than death. Amalei, so Rav Yitzchak, his son, tells his father, Kagoin man, where do you find such a thing? So Rav Yehuda says, Kagoin imach, like your mother. So the Gemara asks on this, is this true that Rav Yehuda had this suffering from his wife? But we know also that Rav Yitzchak birei, Rav Yehuda taught his son Yitzchak, and they said to him, Ein adam moitze kairis ruach elam ishter yishayna. Person only finds kairis ruach, that it calms him down and it's good for him, his wife, and the first wife that a person marries. Shenemar, there's a pasuk that says, Yi mekorcha baruch v'sameach me'eshes nurecha, that a person has joy from the wife of his youth. So was Rav Yehuda's wife painful for him, or was she joyous for him? So the Gemara answers, V'amalei, and Rav Yehuda told Rav Yitzchak, Kagain man. So again, Rav Yitzchak, that is, asked his father Rav Yehuda, who is a wife that brings joy? Kagain imach. So he tells his son, your mother. So the Gemara answers, Maskif tkife. She was very strong-minded or very forceful on one hand. So therefore he said that she could be more bitter than death. But on the other hand, she was able to compromise and give up on her opinion so easily. So therefore he said that she brings him joy. So what's an example of a behavior of a bad wife? Amar Abayis says, Mekashtele taka. She prepares a meal, she prepares a table for him, but a Mekashtele puma, she also prepares her mouth to speak to him and verbally abuse him. Rabba says, Mekashtele taka. She prepares him a table of food, but a Mahadrele gaba, but she turns his back to him and she doesn't join him. Rab Chama bar Chanina said, a person gets married, his averis are clogged up. He doesn't do averis anymore. Shanama, the pasuk says, Matcha isha matza toiv. A person finds a wife, he finds good, and v'yafik ratzim Hashem toiv. So the Gemara is teaching the word v'yafik, that it closes up his the averis. B'marava, in Eretz Yisrael, based on what we learned before, so in Eretz Yisrael, kinasiv inish itza, when a person got married to his wife, Omri lei, they would say to him, Hachi as follows, Matzah oy maitza. What kind of wife did you marry? Did you marry a wife which is matzah, or a wife that is maitza? What's the difference? Matzah, is it a wife that it's matzah, d'chsiv, matzah isha, matzah teiv? You find a wife, you find good. Or maitza, d'chsiv, maitza ani mar mimavis asisha, that I find more bitter from death is a wife. What does this mean? So why in Eretz Yisrael would they ask a person this? I mean, this embarrasses a person. You ask such a kind of direct question, is your wife matzah or maitza? Elamai, the pshat is that it's really dependent on the husband. They're asking the husband, what are you bringing out from your wife? Is this a wife that's matzah or maitza? It's telling him a lesson. Which aspect of your wife are you drawing out? Amar Rava says, Ishara, person has a bad wife, mitzvah legarsha. So it's a mitzvah to divorce her.
You're blaming the husband?
I'm not, yeah, and that's Yisrael. Okay. Ishara, a bad wife, mitzvah legarsha. It's a mitzvah to divorce her. The chsiv, the pasuk says, Garash leitz, v'yetze modin, you should be megarish, you should expel a letz, and a modin, she brings fights, take her out of the house, v'yishba is din v'kolin. You get rid of this judgment and this embarrassment. If you have a bad wife, but the ksubah, money that's written in the ksubah is a very high price, and you can't afford to divorce her, so then sarasa b'tzida. What you do is marry a second wife. Marry a second wife, it'll be her competition, it'll put her in place. Namri inshi, people say bechaverta, with a friend, with another wife, which is a rival to her, that will put her in place, v'loy besilta, and not a thorn. Even if you put thorns in her body, it won't necessarily teach her a lesson. You marry a second wife, it will. V'amar Rava said, Kashi shira, a bad wife is as bad, kiyom sagre, like a rainy and windy day, a hurricane. Shanama, the pasuk says, Delef, Tairid, B'yayim, Sagrir, it leaks and it's very bothersome on a very windy and rainy day. Veishes, Midyanim, and then a bad wife, Nishtava. These two are the same, they're equal. V'amar Rava said, Ba'yurei kamatoivi isha toiva, come and see in the pasuk how good a good wife is for a person. And v'kamer ra isha ra, and how bad a bad wife is. How good a good wife is, like the pasuk says, the chsiv matzah isha matzah tov. You find a wife, you find goodness. Now, so he explains, If the pshat of that pasuk is that it's actually speaking about a wife, so then kama toivi isha toiva shakasav mishapcha. So the pasuk is saying, look how good a wife is. The pasuk is praising her. Now, if this pasuk, when it speaks about matzah isha, it's not really speaking about a wife. It's all a mashal for Torah. So when the pasuk is saying kama toivi isha toiva sha Torah nimshalaba, so that itself can teach you how good a wife is. Because when the pasuk is looking for a mashal, for real goodness to describe Torah, it uses the mashal of a good wife. So that shows you even more how good a good wife is. Similar, when it comes to kamera isha ra, how bad a bad wife is, that a bad wife is worse than death. If the pasuk is speaking about a bad wife, so kama ra isha ra shakasov megana. So you see here the pasuk is saying how disgraceful and how bad a bad wife is. If this pasuk is being used as a mashal for how bad Gehenim is, so you understand even more. Kama ra isha ra, how bad is a bad wife? Shegehenim nimshalaba. That if you're looking for a mashal for Gehenim, we use the mashal of a bad wife. Pasuk says, Hineni mevi ra, I will bring upon you ra, bad things, ashala yuchlu latzis mimena, and you won't be able to see you find your way out of it. What does this refer to? This is a person that has a bad wife, and the price of the ksub is so high that he can't afford to divorce her. Another pasuk it says, Nisanani Hashem biyadi, you gave her into my hands, and I can't stand up from her. This is another pasuk speaking about a bad wife and the price of the ksub is too high. In Marava they said that this pasuk here, actually, when it says that the Eibusher gives it into your hands, it's speaking about something else. It's if a person's feeding himself and it's all the money, the food that he has comes only from the money that he has. But he doesn't have anything that he grows on his own, so he's relying on the money. And the price in the market goes up and down, it fluctuates, and he doesn't have any peace of mind knowing that he has food that he grows on his own. Pasuk in the Teichach it says, "Banecha ubneisecha," your sons and daughters, nesunim la'am acher, will be given to a different nation. What does this refer to? This actually refers to a person that his first wife passed away or divorced her, and now he has children, and he marries a second wife, and the second wife it becomes the stepmother to the children that he had from a previous marriage, so she could end up treating her children that he has with him in one way, and her stepchildren differently, not in the same way. So it's like his children are now in the hands of a foreign nation, of this stepmother. The pasuk says, "Begoy novel achiseim," with a nation novel, a disgusting nation achiseim, I will make them angry. What is this? Also in the Teichach, what does this mean? Again, it refers to a wife, a bad wife, and the price of the ksub is too high. That's a pasuk that speaks about the tzedaikim. And he said in his heart, "There's no God," referring to the tzedaikim. That's the begoy novel achisem. And a Braisi we learned the third pshat of what goy novel means. Elo anshe barbaria v'anshe martenoi. These are people from Barbaria or Martenoi. I think it says different places far away in Africa. And where?
Mauritania.
Okay. Shemahalchen arumim b'shuk. They walk around undressed in the street. There isn't something that's more abominable and more disgusting in front of the Eibishter, like a person that walks in the street undressed or hardly dressed, like walking around like an animal in the street. Rabbi Yechanan says another pshat. What's this goy novel? Elu chaverim. This refers to chaverim. Chaverim does not mean friends here. Chaverim, Rashi here brings, these are from the Persians. They were big rishayim. They would cause trouble for Yidden. They didn't recognize the greatness of Yidden. The Gemara here brings a story about this. Amr leil Rabbi Yechanan. They told Rabbi Yechanan, Asu chavri leBavel. These Persian rishayim came to Bavel. So Shaga Nafal, he leaned over and he fell down from this bad news. Amrulei, then they said to him, Mekable sheichade, you could bribe them. Even when they make you trouble, you can bribe them. So Taretz Yosef, he sat up, back, and he realized that we can save ourselves from them. What happened then? Gazru al Gimel. They decreed 3 things on the Yidden. So Rabbi Yechanan said, you know why they decreed these 3 things? Mipnei Gimel Gazru. It's because of 3 things that the Yidden did not keep. That's why they decreed these things. Again, Mipnei Gimel, because of 3 things. Gazru ala basar. they decreed that the Yidden should not be able to shecht, to eat meat, because the Yidden were withholding those gifts that you're supposed to give to the Kohanim. There's a certain section in the body of the animal, the Zroya, Lachayim, and Keva, you're supposed to give to Kohanim. There's actually an argument about this, if this applies in Chutz La'aretz or not. So, according to some opinions, it applies even in Chutz La'aretz, and that's what it's referring to over here, that they withheld this from the Kohanim. Gazru ala merchetzois. They also made a decree that they should close the bathhouses, because Yidden were not careful with the mitzvah of tefillah. Third thing was kamachatati shichvi. They're uncovering the people, the dead bodies that are buried. What was this a reason for? Because the Yidden were joining in the celebrations of the holidays of the Goyim. Shanama, the pasuk says, that Eibusha will punish you and your fathers. Your fathers are not even alive anymore. So what's the punishment to the fathers? This that it says here, that they uncover their bodies. The bodies that were buried that are being uncovered. The master said, because of the averis of those that are alive, so mesim mischatetin. The bodies of those that were buried become uncovered. There's a pasuk that says, Lo ye'osfu v'lo yikavru. They will not be gathered and be buried. They'll be left like dung that's on the surface of the ground. They won't be properly buried. And right afterwards, the pasuk says, V'nivchar maves mechayim. To pass away, death is better than life. So the question is, why is death better than life? And especially here, it's saying that they're not even going to be buried. On Malay, so explain to him, Nivchar maves l'rishayim. The pasuk is telling you that death for Rishayim is better for them. They shouldn't remain alive in this world, because as long as they remain alive, they keep on sinning, and then they fall into Gehenna. So it's better they pass away and not continue sinning. Kosov b'sefer ben Sira. It says in the sefer of Ben Sira. Ben Sira was someone that wrote different things. We had this once before in the Gemara. This was in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash. So it says interesting things in the Sefer, and the Gemara quotes in different places. Here, the Gemara quotes things that it said in Sefer Ben Sira. It says there as follows: Isha toiva matana toiva. A good wife is a very good gift, lebaila for her husband. Uksiv toiva becheik yirei elikim tinasen. This good will be given in the lap of one that's God-fearing, that the Eibusha gives them. The Bach actually puts this together. He takes out a few words over here, and he says you have to read it together, that a good wife is a good gift for someone that's God-fearing. Isha ra, a bad wife, tzoras labaila. It's like a tzoras for the husband. Maita kante. So what should a husband do with such a wife? Yigarshena, he should divorce her. V'yisrapim mitzarate, and he'll be healed from this tzoras. Isha yafa, beautiful wife. Ashrei baila, fortunate is her husband. And mispar yamav kiflayim, and he counts his numbers, his days. It's like double because of the quality of his life. With a good wife, it's like his wife is double. His life, that is, the days are double. And the pasuk then says, or actually, it's not the pasuk. This is, I guess, part of what it says in Sefer Ben Sira. Hala meinecha me'eshes chein. Close your eyes from looking at a beautiful wife. Pentilkad b'mitzudasa, because you might be caught in her trap. Al tat etzel baila. Do not go together with her husband. Limsach ima yayin v'shecha, to pour wine and beer. Ki b'tayir isha yafe, because in the face or the beauty of a beautiful woman, rabim hushchasu, many were destroyed. Vatsumim kala regea, and many are the peoples that were killed because of this. Rabim hoyu pitzei reichel, and also many people that are peddlers that go around from city to city and they sell things to women, perfumes and all kinds of things that women buy, and therefore they look at these women and therefore they get wounded by this. Hamragilim ledvar erva. And they become accustomed to these not proper relationships because they're looking at beautiful women when they're not supposed to. Kinitzutz maver gacheles. It's like a spark that brings the fire of a coal that it should be turned on fire. Kekluv meloy oif. And just like you have a cage that's full of their birds, kaim bateyim malayim mirma. So to these people that look at these women and they're not supposed to, their house is full of mirma, full of deceit. Al totzar, another thing that it says there is, al totzar tzoras machar. Do not be so worried and concerned about the tzoras that may come tomorrow. Kiletele mayolad yaim. It never pays to worry about tomorrow. You never know what's going to be tomorrow. Shema machar ba veinenu. Maybe that tomorrow that you were so worried about, that's never going to come to be at all. And nimtza mitztayer ala olam shein shaloi. So you're worrying about a world, about something that might happen that's not even yours, that never ends up materializing. Another thing it says there, Menar rabim mitoich pesecha. hold back many in the public of coming into your house. Not everybody from the street do you have to bring into your house. The person has to know exactly who he brings into his home. And also, Rabim Yu Dorshei Shlemecha. Many should be those that are seeking your good. But Gali Soid Lechad Melech. But your private things, your secrets, the people that you confide with, should also only be to 1 in 1,000. So you don't have to say your private things and your secrets to everybody in the street. Amar Ravasi said, we had this before in the Gemara, Ein ben David ba ad sheyichlu kol haneshamis shebeguf. Mashiach doesn't come until all those neshamis that exist above in that Eitzer that's called Guf, until all those neshamis come down into the world. Shenema, the pasuk says, Ki ruach melofana yatov v'neshamis aniya sisi. So the ruach melofana yatov, the yatov Rashi said before means that when they get delayed, so therefore Mashiach doesn't come. So the Eibusha creates those neshamis that have to come down to the world. Tanya, we learned in Abraisa, Rabbi Eliezer said, Kol mi shei noisig b'piri v'ribya. Person that does not occupy himself in giving birth to children, ki'ilu shoifich damim. It's like he's spilling blood. Shenama, the pasuk says, shoifich dama adam b'adam dama yishafich. A person that spills blood, his blood will be spilled. Uksiv basrei, right after that pasuk, it says, va'atem pruruvu, that you should multiply. So you see that if you don't, so then you're like spilling blood. Rabbi Yaakov says a different thing. Ki'ilu memayit admus. If you don't have children, if you don't are Isaac in having children, so then it's as if you're minimizing the demus, the image of Hashem in the world. Shenema, the pasuk says, Ki b'tzelem elikim asas adam. The Eibusha created a person in the image of Hashem. Uksiv basrei, and right afterwards it says, V'atem pru'uruvu. You should give birth to children. You're bringing the image of Hashem into the world. Ben Azai says it's both are true. Ki'ilo shoifich damim u'memayit admos. It's as if you're spilling blood and you minimize the image of Hashem in the world. Shenema va'atem pru'uruvu, like the psukim that we just brought here. So now Amru Laila Ben Azai. Ben Azai is the one that said this. So they said to Ben Azai, Yeshna dairish v'na mekayim. There's a person that darshans beautifully and he also fulfills what he says. And then there's a person that's Noah Mekayim, he fulfills beautifully, but vein Noah dairish, even if he's not a great, beautiful baldarshan. But va'ato Noah dairish, you expound and say about the importance of having children, but vein Noah Mekayim, you don't fulfill what you yourself are darshaning. That's because Rabbi Ben Azai did not get married, he did not have children. Amalem Ben Azai, so Ben Azai answered, what should I do? Shenafshi choshka b'Torah, that my soul desires to learn Torah. And therefore he said, it's possible that the world will stand on others that will have children and not me. This is actually brought lahalacha. I mean, in other words, what you see over here from this Gemara is that even though Pir V'Ribi is a mitzvah, and it's a great mitzvah, it's the first mitzvah in the Torah, but nevertheless the obligation of having children, if a person is really learning Torah, like Ben Azai, and the level of Ben Azai, of Nafshi Chashke Bat Torah, he's potter from the mitzvah of Pir V'Ribi. He doesn't have to have children. Tanya idach, we learned in a different brayse the same thing that we just said before, but a little bit of a different version in the names here. Rabbi Eliezer said that kol mi she'ein Isaac b'piri v'ribya, that someone that does not occupy himself in having children, so then kila shoifich damim, it's like he's spilling the blood. Shenema shoifich dama adam v'samach lei v'atem pru'uruvu, like it said before. And here, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, before it was Rabbi Yaakov, here it's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, so he said, Kilo mimayit admus, you're diminishing the image of Hashem in the world. And then Ben Azai v'chulu, exactly like it said before, Ben Azai said that it's both, that you're diminishing the demus of the Eibishter and your shoifech dam. Amru Leila Ben Azai, yeshna dairish v'chulu, the conclusion is the same as before, and Ben Azai said that nafshi choshke bat Torah, that his desires, his whole occupation is joy in learning Torah.